Hello, everybody. I am looking and I'm waiting for the countdown to appear, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm live. How are you doing? My name is Dr. Crystal Porter, and welcome to my Lunchtime Chat that is sponsored by Our Black Hair Matters. And today we are discussing shocking hair industry revelations that will make you mad. And so, if you saw my post, I basically was saying that some hair industry secrets are in plain sight, but we are in a world full of information overload, and sometimes important things we need to know just fall through the cracks. But no worries, I am here to fill in some of those gaps so that you can continue to make informed decisions about products that you use and how it may impact your well being. So during this week's chat, I will uncover how new research suggests that exposure to certain products may affect our health. Then we'll talk about the truth about most hair testing and why some claims just are not valid. And then what is being ignored and why it can lead us to waste money on products. So, just in case you do not know who I am, and you are new to the platform, my name is Dr. Crystal Porter, and I am a hair scientist and owner of Main Insights, which is a company that conducts research. This is a live online broadcast platform dedicated to elevating the Black hair care industry and empowering consumers and hair professionals with education that is driven and backed by scientific research. I am passionate, if you don't know already, about all of this. And the main reason why I do this is really to assist hair practitioners in getting data and to validate their hair services. So I want to see who all is out there. Say hello if you can see me. Hey, Andrea, thanks for coming. I see Taria is here. Thanks so much. But, I would love to know where you're watching from. If you're a hair practitioner, put the number 1 in the chat. If you are a consumer, put the number 2. I see Andrea already did that. And if you are a researcher or a scientist just like me, put the number 3 in the chat. Would love to see who you are. And then don't be stingy. Will you please share this broadcast? Invite 5 people who you think will really benefit from the information. And so, before I jump in, if you are frustrated with the lack of information available to you when it comes to caring for your hair, or you've wasted lots of money, which is something that I mentioned in terms of why we need to have this discussion today. But we also waste time and resources just trying to figure things out on our own. If you answered yes to either of these questions, then you are definitely in the right place. And this is why I created the Our Black Hair Matters movement. So, the last thing I want to say is I have put together a valuable resource if you have not put your hands on it. And it is the 3 biggest mistakes to avoid when caring for your curly hair. So, you can get that by going to ourblackhairmatters.com. All right. And so let's see if anybody else has come on here. Oh, I see Facebook user. When that happens, it means that my streaming platform, which is StreamYard, doesn't have the permissions for me to see your name. So I apologize when I see Facebook user. I can't address you by name. Watching from Kansas. All right. Thanks for joining. Really appreciate that. And it looks like you are a scientist just like me. So thank you for letting me know that. Taria says that she's watching from Canada. Awesome. Thanks for coming. All right. And so if I do have a team of hair practitioners who have been trained. So if you have a pressing concern and you need to have a conversation about anything that's going on with you, our team is standing by. And so you can schedule a 15-minute complimentary consultation by going to bit.ly OBHM consult. And that should be on the screen shortly. So you can see that. There we go. All right. And so let's go ahead and get started. Whew. So I'm going to bring up a couple of slides. I know that Andrea in particular did say that visuals are sometimes helpful. So I am going to have just a couple of slides just so that you can actually see what motivated what I'm going to talk about. And so this first slide is going to show you the research source that I used. And here it is right here. So you can see, let's see if I can make it a little bigger and make me smaller. Awesome. All right, Environmental Science and Technology is the journal that that motivated what I'm going to talk about right now. And basically, it talks about the occupational exposures to phthalates among Black and Latino US hairdressers serving in ethically diverse clientele. And this is a pilot study. And so I want to talk a little bit about the title so that we can dive into the content. But so it talks about phthalates. And if you are anywhere on social media looking at what is good or not good for you, one of the things that is one of the taboo type of ingredients is phthalates. And so in this schematic that you see on the slide, it really does kind of give an overview of what the study is about. So basically, it's important because phthalates have been linked to problems with respiratory. It's been known to be an endocrine disruptor, which means that it messes with your hormones. And then it also has been linked to problems with reproduction. So that is like the motivation as to why these authors did this publication. And it's really unique because we oftentimes hear information about studies for usage when it comes to the consumer. And so, not to say that this is not important to focus on consumers, but this is one of the first studies that actually talk about people who are in the profession or looks at some of the health risks or possible health risks that may result from the handling of different products. And so, unfortunately, as a woman of African descent, it is well known that a lot of the products do have phthalates in it that are marketed to us. And so I want to kind of talk about the study design in terms of what they did, and the schematic here shows it. So here you see phthalate on top. And basically, these phthalates are incorporated in hair care products, but they can also be found in other areas, such as different plastics contain them, like packaging, lubricating oils, different medical tubing, and as the schematic shows, hair care products. And basically, it's used to hold the fragrance and also to help with lubrication. And so as you see, there is a beautician, as they say, or hairdresser. They say hairdresser. And so the hairdresser is applying it to their client. And then what they did is they measured the metabolites. And metabolite is basically a structure or a compound that when the body is introduced to the chemical, and I should say a substance, because some people say chemical and people know when you talk about chemical, that's anything that exists and has a molecular structure at all. But when that enters your body, then your body actually metabolizes it and it makes another compound. And so they are measuring that compound that is turned into in the urine. So the more you're exposed to the phthalate, and there are different types of phthalates, they are able to look at the metabolite, which is the structure that is excreted. Now, the good news about the fact that it's excreted is it's not staying in the body and lingering around, because a lot of times when you have health issues, it's because of the bioaccumulation of the molecule that is not being it's just accumulating in the body, and it is not being excreted. So the good news is that when you have that excretion, that your body is healthy and acting normally and optimally. But in this particular study, they were showing that Unfortunately, there was an elevation of the phthalates compared to normal office workers. So I want to talk a little bit more about the study design in terms of, let me see if I can find it because I have it in my little notes here. Yes, so there were 23 hairdressers from the DMV. And those of you who don't know what DMV is, it means the DC, Maryland, and Virginia areas. And so they basically did a pilot study. And what a pilot study is, a smaller study that you can use to really see where the data is going. And then it allows you to do some tweaks when you do the bigger study so that you can optimize the information that you get. But even with this pilot study, they were really able to see some really good stuff. And that is, like I said, the elevation of phthalates in the urine. And so some people will be like really alarmed and like, oh my God, I'm working with products. And if they have phthalates in it, I probably have more phthalates in my system. And that is true. However, phthalates is something that exists in our environment anyway. And so that's going to exist whether or not you use products or not. I mean, it's in everything that we use. And so if it's elevated, the good news is that at least it is metabolizing properly when you're able to detect it in the urine. And so let me make sure I don't have any comments for what I've said thus far. Hey, Miss Joyce, good to see you. Oh, someone is asking, what am I a doctor of? Excellent question. So I am not a physician. I actually have a PhD in chemistry. However, I would consider myself more of a materials scientist more so than a chemist because I don't do formulation. And a lot of people say, oh my gosh, you are a chemist and you work in hair care. I have a product that I want like an expert to evaluate. And even though I can evaluate the effects of the product because I'm more of a materials scientist, so it's more about looking at the effects of different or the changes in properties as a function of use of different products and formulations. But that is what I'm a doctor of. So thank you for the invite, Crystal Porter. So glad I am finally not on another Zoom. That's great. Now your name is not coming up as saying Facebook user, but after I log out of here, I will be able to see exactly who you are and I will address you. So Joyce says that she's in Chicago and listening in. And then Taria says, oh, Kimberly Peck. Okay. And Crystal is a trichologist. Actually, Taria, I am not a trichologist. I am a hair scientist. A trichologist is someone who has more of an expertise in diseases of the hair and scalp. And so they work hands-on with clients, but I collaborate with lots of trichologists because I really do think that the data that they are in terms of, having their fingertips in the scalp and in the hair, they are instrumental in me as a scientist getting data that is important for evaluation so that we can shed more light on things that are important when it comes to hair science and health. And then another Facebook user whose name isn't popping up says, hey, Crystal. So hello. I will address you by your name when I'm able to see on the back end exactly who you are, but you are on Facebook. So thank you for joining. Taria says, I stand corrected. Thank you for the clarification. No problem. No problem. A lot of people mistaken me for a trichologist because I do have expertise in an area that's very similar. But the difference is my focus is staying in the laboratory, and a lot of trichologists, they serve people. Some are serviced remotely, and then others are serviced in person. And so it's really those in-person experiences that I appreciate because when you see someone in person, you're able to collect data that we can use in the laboratory to build upon. And so trichologists do not diagnose or treat disease, only physicians do. Thank you for that. Yes, that is correct. I really am disappointed I can't see your name. And then, oh yeah, you just corrected treat. All right. So there are a lot of hair practitioners on here. And I'm curious about what you feel about just having your hands on, or your hand, your body. I mean, you really dedicate a lot of your life to your profession. And so with this particular study is showing that, you are exposed to different ingredients that may or may not be detrimental to your health. Jeanette, hey Jeanette, I can see your name. You said, what harm can the phthalates cause? So I was mentioning earlier that is known as a endocrine disruptor, which means that it affects your hormones, and then it's also been shown to be problematic with the reproductive system, and then also with the some other health. Well, some people say it can even be a carcinogen, which means that it may cause cancer. Oh, Dr. Barbosa. Hey, thanks for joining. Really appreciate that. And so, with this particular study, it is mind blowing to me because I think it raises a lot of other questions. So, we've known that phthalates are incorporated in different hair care products, but um, we only usually focus on the consumer, rightfully so, but there are other professionals who also need to be analyzed, or we need to understand a little bit more. So I wanted to talk about some of the other questions that can be raised from this, because I'm actually going to reach out to the authors to see if I can bring them on, because they actually have a lot of data and it's way beyond the scope of what I want to go into. But there are some things that I feel is appropriate for me to discuss, especially since I am really trying to promote more research in this particular area. And so we need to ask the question, are there occupational hazards in the area of hair care that we don't know about that go beyond phthalates? And one of the things that we don't do as scientists, and I'll talk a little bit about why, is we just don't have enough information to really know what we need to be leery of. And so we know that consumers are exposed. We know that the people who handle the products are exposed. But what about those who even make the formulations? The thing is, the ones who make the formulations, they usually have an advantage because they use personal protective equipment such as gloves and masks. And then they also have engineering controls because they work in a laboratory, which oftentimes have hoods that help to ventilate the air. And so, I mean, while we have those in place, and it has been shown that that does help. So if you are working with those types of products, then it is important for you to know that you could be exposed. But like I said, the mere fact that we're seeing the phthalate metabolites in our urine doesn't necessarily mean that it's causing harm. But that's what we really need to get into the heart of. What is it about the state of our bodies that make our bodies, some bodies, more susceptible to the effects of these potentially detrimental substances that we have in our bodies versus people actually who don't have those problems. So it's interesting because in medicine, they are really starting a precision medicine initiative, which they're collecting a lot of data. They have people participating in studies, and they're able to start seeing these links with a large enough population so that we can, build those stories and really understand more. And so it's important for us as Black people to be involved in these studies as well. And that is really lacking. And I'm going to go into that a little bit more. But the other thing we need to be aware of is some of the packaging that holds the formulations or the products can actually have phthalates in the packaging that leach into the product too. So sometimes people say, well, just stay away from phthalates. But as I said earlier, it's very difficult for you to get away from it because it's in everything that we live around. So a lot of the plastics have it. there are just, yeah, it's no way to really get rid of it easily. See, thought I saw another question. Nope, that was just a flicker. Okay. So, the other thing that we need to ask is there anything that we can do to like optimize the way that we metabolize it and other potential toxins that come into the body? And so, for example, I've done some reading that milk thistle, and I don't know if you know what milk thistle is, it's a dietary supplement. But there has been research to show that it helps the liver to metabolize toxins in the body. So, can we kind of counter the effects of it or the potential effects of it by taking milk thistle? I mean, there are so many questions that need to be answered relative to the not just doing research, but to get even or dig even deeper into looking at what's really going on. And so we need to ask the question, why aren't there more studies being done? And I have to tell you that what it takes for us to be more involved in studies is to really ensure that our well being is considered. But we, as consumers, as people who live in America, as people who actually consume a lot of the things that we eat, but also are consumers of the products that we use in and on our bodies, we need to actually be a part of the solution by participating in the studies. And so we can't screen foul if there aren't even, if we're not even in the game. We oftentimes have a fit when we find out about studies that show that something may be detrimental to our health. And then we want to say, oh, it's targeted towards us. But in actuality, until we ask and demand that more work be done, but we also support it by being a part of studies, then we really don't have a whole lot to say. We really do need to be a part of the solution. And so Penny said, hey, so that must be Tara. Hey, thanks for joining. Really appreciate it. And so if you hear that, there are studies being done and there are results that show that you may have a need to be concerned, then we all need to stand up together and be a part of the Our Black Hair Matters movement and make sure that we do things actively to make sure that we are a part of the solution. Now, the second side, are there any questions before I go on? I want to make sure that there aren't any questions about that. Oh, and the other thing that I didn't do, I want to give a special thanks to Jamie Schrabeck, who was someone who actually brought this to my attention. She was able to share it with me. And then Chandra Aid Brown, who is actually someone I've been mentoring for about 5 to 6 years now. She just graduated with her PhD. I'm so excited for her. And so she is a fellow hair scientist with her PhD now, and she will be actively helping me in some of this type of research to get to the answer of these questions. So I want to thank both of them for their participation in helping me to give this information to you. Any questions based on why I said what I said so far? Are you shocked? Or is this, oh, this is just other things that just add on to the pile of information as to why something needs to be done? I'm really curious about as to what you think. So please share in the chat. And so moving on, I want to talk about, the truth about most hair testing and why some claims just aren't valid. So on my next slide, I am going to show something from cosmetics and toiletries. And so the motivation for talking about this was a very good article that was written by Trevor Evans. He is a seasoned professional. He's been in the industry between 25 and 30 years. He's been around for a little bit. And actually, he was my supervisor when I first got my start at Unilever. And so he's a very good writer, and he has published a number of articles in cosmetics and toiletries. So while I'm not going to talk about everything that he discussed because it was a good article about claims, one thing I want to highlight is the fact that He talked about how most hair that's being used for claims is treated hair. And it's not just treated hair. I don't think he went into the article with the details. He just said that when you make a claim and you show that there's a benefit, that you can use treated hair to optimize the sensitivity of the instrument in being able to detect an improvement. And so it's okay to say that you're using treated hair, but usually the degree of treatment is just, to me, not representative of what happens in the real world. And what I mean by that is usually you have Caucasian straight hair that has been permed or bleached at least 3 times. So you use a high developer, you're lightening, and you're doing it a total of 3 times in order for the instrumental lab to be able to say, okay, this actually helps and there is a benefit as a result of using said product. And to me, it's something wrong with that. It's something wrong with it from the perspective that, to me, it is overkill when it comes to treating the hair. But if that's what you have to do to the hair in order to get the results that you need to make the claim, it's really something wrong with that. And if you dig deep and you actually ask, or if you are in the know like I am in terms of the extremes that they do to actually show some of the benefit, that's just not cool. The other thing I want to say is I have studied thousands, probably tens of, no, I can say tens of thousands of hair fibers. And I know that you do not need to treat hair in such a drastic way in order to see the type of results or benefits from a particular product. So to me, not only is it not realistic, it's just not needed. And the problem is, I think as a lot of, well, I'm going to include myself, we as hair and hair care scientists, I think we are a little complacent because we're used to doing the same things in the same way. And it's time for change. It is time for us to elevate and make sure that we start doing things differently because it's not needed. But when you're used to doing it and that's the industry standard, it's kind of hard to change those standards. But in order for us to change the standards, it's important for us to actually demand it. And so just like with the all of the ingredients, everybody's saying we want natural ingredients, we want natural ingredients. And they're making products with natural ingredients now, but that isn't anything that they wanted to do. They were forced to do it. And so just like they were forced to make changes in the formulation, it's important for us to make changes and make demands so that they can do the testing differently. And so I don't know how you even expect us to be happy as consumers, because as women of African descent, mostly women of African descent, who really have strong emotional opinions about what we're doing to our hair and how our hair looks, you can't expect us to be happy when you know that the experimental design is flawed. I mean, that just doesn't make sense. And that means the claims aren't really valid. So we need to be in charge of that. And the I've seen some products where they talk about 4C hair. And so for those of you who may not know, 4C hair is a designation for the extreme, I shouldn't say extreme, but the curliest hair type that there is by the Andre Walker assignment. And so my hair is extended, but I have 4C hair, and I understand the need for what I feel something that is specific for my hair type, because I think that I have challenges that are probably more extreme than someone with looser curled hair. The manageability part, especially as it grows longer, just trying to keep it healthy, make sure it doesn't break off. I mean, there are needs. The dry feeling that people always describe, there are particular needs that we have. And so when there are claims being made based on triple bleached straight Caucasian hair, that's not necessarily going to solve a need for someone who has 4C hair. And so we need to make sure and ask those questions. And so this kind of leads into the last point I want to make in terms of what is being ignored and why it leads us to waste a lot of money on products. And so I'm going to make myself bigger now because I don't have any other data or information to show. But from experience and from talking with other scientists, we know that there are a lot of inconsistencies in data from sample to sample. And this should not be surprising to anyone who has dealt with more than their own hair. We have the same headache as scientists that we have as consumers, and that is, we can't get consistent results, right? So if you look at your mom's hair compared to your sister's hair, or even your own hair, you know that all hair is not created equal. And it's based on the fact that our hair doesn't have the same experiences. So the grooming methods may be different, the manipulation frequency. We have environmental factors in terms of water hardness or sun exposure or product types. So the variables go on and on and on in terms of why we all have different hair histories. But I've heard some of my colleagues, my fellow scientists say that a method must not be good because it doesn't give reproducible results. And that just does not make sense to me because the instrument is measuring what it's measuring. And so it's not that the instrument isn't doing what it's supposed to do. The hair is different. And so the measurements are showing the differences. I mean, to me, that's a no-brainer. So instead of dealing with the differences, the obvious is ignored, and we as scientists keep doing the same measurements, just trying to simplify what I think is a very complicated problem. And so the solution is simple and expensive, but the execution is difficult and expensive. And the solution is to test more and analyze more. And what that means is we need to test more hair samples, all the differences, and see it, and then use a lot of the high-powered analysis tools that we have right now to analyze it. It's being done in medicine right now. It takes time. We don't have the results in medicine yet, but they are actively trying to do it. And there is a big study, a 10-year study called All of Us, actually. And there is a big push to include more people of color because we are not represented. So while there are going to be milestones made in medicine for people in the population, if you don't have representation of people who look like me and you, then the benefit is going to be for other people who don't look like me and you. So we really have to do something about this. So I may sound like a broken record, but we need to ask questions and demand more within the industry. And so those of you who've been following me for a while know that I have a motto called Show Me the Data. And it really isn't just a hashtag. It really is a battle cry and something that I truly, truly believe in. And in this day and age, we are more educated more than ever, and there is no reason why we should not ask critical questions about our hair matters. So hair practitioners should be asking manufacturers the who, what, when, where, how, and why. We need to be asking, who has this product been tested on? What were the test methods used? When was the experiment conducted? Where is the data? How repeatable are the results? And why is your product better? And if you're a consumer, you should be asking the same of the manufacturers. And that's if you do your own hair. But if you don't, and you have a hair care professional, then you need to be asking them those questions. And so if you sell products that you don't have data for, I suggest that you get on a train and find a conductor that can guide you in the right direction. to the right destination, because I'm personally not going to stop. And I'm mentoring the up and coming hair scientists and other hair scientists and hair care scientists who will work to advance the cause. But we also need to be a part of being involved and being a part of the solution to the problem, as I said before. If you are a hair practitioner, you already know I partner with those who are serious and conscientious enough to really want to make a difference. So we as consumers should be open to being part of studies to advance science in the areas that are important to us. And as I said, I actively conduct studies. And if you don't trust me, you really need to find other researchers who are just as passionate as I am about getting to the answers that you deem are important. And so I'm going to get off of my soapbox and I'm going to make sure that there aren't any questions. But I'm curious, is any of this stuff making sense to you? Is it something that you think there's a need for? Or is it something that you think like, yeah, she's just talking again? She's saying the same old thing and nothing is ever going to change. I'm really curious about whether or not you feel that this is important. And so said, thanks for this. Representation is important in every industry. I agree 100%. I always tell my daughters that diversity is important, but not only when people typically talk about culture or skin color. It really is diversity of experiences and diversity in thought. That is really what's needed to advance any industry, as was indicated. Jeanette said, I'm with you, Dr. Porter. Right on, sis. Thank you, Jeanette. Really appreciate it. I actually saw you. You were at the TOME conference or convention in Mexico. I hate that I couldn't join. But yeah, I just didn't think it was safe for me to travel. So I know it was good because I saw it virtually. Are there any other comments? I'm just really curious about the information that I shared and your desire to really want to be a part of the solution, whether it's from a consumer perspective or if you are a hair practitioner. Someone says, this is Tara. I won't even try a product unless I see users with my type of hair. Okay, I'm still on the lookout for the perfect find. Yeah, and until we personalize it, until we get the data so that we can really tailor, well, we have enough data to tailor a little bit, but we can go so much further with it. And it's just going to take time, data, effort, and commitment. And I challenge a lot of the manufacturers out there to get data behind their products because that's what's needed. And we need to be demanding it. But thank you so much, Tara, for saying that. Okay. So just just a little announcement. I actually have a presentation. I'm a keynote for the Ohio Beauticians Association. So I will be joining that shortly after this is over. And so those of you who are beauticians, you can actually go to their website and register. I will actually post it on Facebook after I am done with this, but it's something, education is extremely important. Getting perspectives from different people in different regions is important because what I found out after leaving L'Oreal is that there are products that are prevalent in particular regions. And so Ohio has particular products that I think are more prominent there. And just so getting information about what they're experiencing and how they're dealing with certain things is really important. I am definitely an advocate for education. So with that, I want to thank everybody. I want you to remember that our Black hair matters. And as always, take care and love your hair. Bye-bye.